morning to everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us for our panel discussion today. This session will be recorded and available on the College of Business website later this week. My name is Dr. Elten Briggs. I am professor and chair of the marketing department here at the College of Business. And today we have an amazing panel discussion. What is a D&I leader? Our panel includes Mejia. Mejia? Am I saying that correctly?
Mejia.
Mejia, sorry. Mejia, Senior Vice President and CFO with Ulterra Drilling Technologies. Rina, Parikh, partner with Grant Thornton, LLP. And Angela Cauthorn, Senior HRD DEI Specialist with Digital Strategy. Our goal today is that you will come away with an innovative idea, a fresh perspective, or a new strategy that you can apply to be more successful in your business or career search. The format for today's event will begin with a few questions we'll ask the panelists to spotlight some high-level themes and ideas that we should be thinking about. Then we'll open it up for questions that you can submit using the chat feature or by raising your hand. If we run out of time today, please be assured that we will post the answers to your submitted questions via chat at the conclusion or after the conclusion of today's event. Sound good? All right, great. Let's get started with the panel questions. Question number one. What is your definition of diversity and what does it mean to you?
Dr. Briggs, do you want to go as in any order or just?
I think you're on mute.
I think you're on mute.
Oops, sorry about that. Rina, why don't we have you go ahead and take the lead, and then Maria and Angela for this the question for now.
Okay, well, sounds good. Well, thank you, and really pleasure to be here today. And I know we've been talking a lot lately about diversity and inclusion, and there are a lot of the simple word of diversity is of course diversity in a different form or bring different people together. From my perspective, it is one of the things that we say here at our firm is how big is your team, and that really means that bring the people with different background, different skill set, different experience, and to bring them together, empower them to achieve your common goal, whether it's a business goal or we're solving a community objective, just bringing different people and empowering them to use their differences for the common goal. So that's what diversity means to me. But yeah, I would love to hear from Angela and Mejia on that.
Yeah, I think for me, Rina, thank you for that. For me is, we all come from different walks in life and have had different experiences and exposure to different things throughout our careers and our lives. So diversity for me brings coming together to find the right answer to, be it a problem, a challenge we're facing. So I think that those different paths in life that each of us has taken or life has brought us through has given us a different point of view that are critical for us to actually successfully solve any problems in front of us.
And I'd like to say thank you as well for inviting me to participate today. I got my master's at UTA. I was sharing that earlier. So I feel like I should define it the way that Dr. Bell would. Otherwise, I'd be remiss and she might revoke my degree. But it's the real or perceived differences among people that affect our interactions and our relationships. But what it means to me is it's uniqueness. We're all unique. We're all diverse. There is no diverse candidate. And it's just diversity is a fact. So that's what diversity means to me.
Thank you very much for your answers there. Second question, and I guess when we do the answers this time, we'll go Mejia, then Angela, then Rina on this one. What is your definition of inclusion, and what does it mean to you?
Thank you, Doctor. And yes, I guess I didn't thank everyone for having me here today and for listening to our stories. But for me, the definition of inclusion is having a seat at the table. So making sure we take the time to listen to everyone. We make the time to make sure people know where the table is and how to get involved, and encouraging people to get involved, because I think it also means we got to make sure that everyone is encouraged to participate and not shy of sitting at that table or asking for a seat. So there's a little bit of both sides. It's giving the seat at the table, but also encouraging people to take that seat and not be afraid to share that path of life that they come from.
And we'll go Angela next.
I agree with that. I think it's an environment where people feel like they're valued and respected, and that their uniqueness is valued, and that they have that sense of belonging. In fact, that belonging word, like a lot of titles now have, like inclusion and belonging leader, is trying to cultivate that sense of belonging. And I think it goes beyond fear, and it goes beyond safety and acceptance. When you feel included, you're part of a team. You feel that connection to the mission and the vision of the organization, that we is more powerful than me. I feel like that's when you feel included, you know that we includes me, right? So
Yeah, and I totally agree with everything, Angela and Maria, both of you said. To me, there is this definition that I heard somewhere and has stuck with me on what is inclusion. Because we talk a lot about diversity, having different people, but then really it stops there many times for a lot of organizations, that let's just kind of have diverse people in our team. But then the second part, the inclusion, is the super, super important. And somebody said this definition is diversity is something where you invite different diverse people to a party. Inclusion is when you ask them to dance with you. So, and I just thought that is so stuck with me, because that's what happens a lot of time in corporate environment. Like we have different people in our team. Sometimes they all have a seat at the table, but ultimately the decision making gets just done by the few people right in the room. So to me, inclusion is really truly kind of taking their opinion, making them part of the decision, and not just sort of having a checking the box of having diverse people in your team, but really kind of empowering them to make decisions and be part of the solution that you're trying to achieve. So.
Well, thank you all for your answers on those first two. So the next question asks, why now? Why is D&I the topic of conversation? And so we'll start with Angela on this one, and then go Rina and Maria.
Well, I've been in this field for close to 15 years, specific DE&I, and I feel like it's always been a topic of conversation. And we were talking about diversity fatigue 10 years ago. So it's in there, but I definitely also acknowledge that increased, almost fatiguing work of nature of this work since George Floyd. And I would say that the reason why that really drew everyone's attention and made companies start making, bold statements was because of COVID. I don't think it would have had that same impact, because that tragic occurrence has occurred multiple times before and other times that didn't draw the nation's attention. So I think it's that combination. D&I has always been here, and I think it's been a topic of conversation, but it's been a national political conversation in the past 3 years. And I would say that's probably because of George Floyd and because of COVID.
Yeah, I would also share more. I'm a business leader and a partner in the firm, so I'm also going to share a little bit maybe. The conversation is super important with everything that's happening around us. As Angela, you just shared, a lot of things we're learning, right? I think a lot of things, were just sort of hidden and were buried under the carpet. And but also to share like more a business aspect. I think it's going to be super important for companies today and going forward to have to have this D&I forefront of all their business decision making. It's going to be important for them to retain the talent that they need for their businesses. It's going to be important for them to serve their clients. Clients are asking to have want to see the diverse team on the other side serving them. And even kind of, from the community standpoint, communities asking to have a diverse leaders to lead them, and they want their leaders to look like them, right? So I think it's important today, and it's probably going to be important for a long time. I think it's because it's going to really affect for companies on how, or companies or organizations on how successful they are going to be, and those who are not going to pay attention to that definitely going to suffer in my mind in future. So yeah. I don't know, Maria, do you want to share something else? Yeah.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, I think why now, and why it's becoming more important every day is also the way we communicate. Social media, electronic communication has made it a lot easier for all of us to listen to different points of view, at least all those points of view to be highlighted. So like Angela said, this is an issue that we've been dealing with for many, many years, but maybe it is a lot more present today because we have access to it in social media. It's not just controlled by the news here or there. Is what are individuals thinking? How are individuals feeling through a certain situation that the world's facing? So I think that's why it's a lot more prominent now. Now, what Rina was saying, why is it important to business? I think the world is changing very quickly. For the same reasons, communication, but the world, the problems we face today are very different than the problems we faced 20 years ago. And I think business leaders have realized that just doing things the way we used to do them, just setting the old ways with one, path forward always, has led a lot of business to fail. So I think businesses have realized that having all those different points of views, people that come from different paths of lives and different experiences, enrich the business decision-making process and make them a lot more successful in adapting to a very quickly changing environment.
Thank you very much. Those are great answers. Moving on now, the next question is, what has influenced your thinking around D&I and motivated you to get involved in being an advocate for change? And we'll start again with Rina for this question.
Yeah, so I'm going to say my little journey as quick as I can. I grew up in India, moved here 25 years ago. So I'm Texan from not only from here, from heart now, but for me, I got involved in this initiative mainly at my firm, Thornton, which I've been with the firm for 20 plus years now. And when I started in the firm, we had no female leaders in this office. We had some female leaders in the firm, but definitely, very few. And I, of course, was ambitious, wanted to grow. This is a tough profession to be in, but there was really nobody around like me. And not only, I'm talking about not only, a leader of color, but there was no even a female leaders in this office. And we started, our kind of a women's BRG or business resource group, back that time. And it was mainly to support, our diversity, mainly at least from gender diversity. That was like a step one, right? So even the women's didn't have, we felt like the equal seat and any of the decision making at the firm. So that's how I really got involved. And it was more self-serving to me in a way, because I felt like there was almost no support system around to grow and how to be a leader in this profession. And then one thing led to the other. Had a number of people who supported me in my journey, and over the year, I feel like I've learned so much about different diversity, people with different background, race, religion, kind of where they have grown up, and that has just sort of really inspired me that, I have so many of my own unconscious biases that, I did not know. And that has just been so inspiring to kind of learn and how do we kind of really use our differences, for a common kind of goal here. So that's how I got involved. I still lead I'm an executive sponsor for our women's BRG here for Dallas. But I also serve on a national role with some of our other BRGs, and I'm allies to some of our different diversity groups. So that's what really kind of, it was my own journey, and then kind of really want to empower others who are also with a diverse background and how they could be successful on really whatever they want to achieve in their careers. So that's a little thing about me. So yeah.
Thank you. I think we'll go Maria and Angela next. Thank you.
Perfect, doctor. So, Rina, very, very similar story. As probably you can tell from my accent too. I was originally born and raised in Colombia, and I actually moved to the States to go to school at UTA. And from there, I went to industries that have always been traditionally not focused on the NI. So first, I worked in trucking. So you can imagine how tough that was. I was literally the only female in that office space. And then I went to oil and gas. I work at Ulterra today. I've been here for 13 years. Again, a traditionally white male dominated business, oil and gas, especially in the US. So the Ulterra has given me a tremendous opportunity to change that. And as I was talking before, it has allowed the business to gain a competitive edge on anything else and everyone else. So it's my own journey again, like Rina said. So the challenges I faced, growing my career, getting better at what I did in industries that were traditionally male dominated, made me realize that we needed to get involved in encouraging more diversity, that we needed to include different backgrounds, different races, different genders, because otherwise, like I was trying to point out in my conversation earlier, companies get stuck in a set way of doing things, and they forget that the environment's quickly changing and they don't adapt. I think we bring that to the table. Having a diverse group of people making decisions helps you move a lot faster than a traditional industry does. So now I spent a lot of time trying to encourage girls to get involved in STEM. Because we have very few engineers, for example, even in the oil field today. So I go around and speak to high schools to get females interested in STEM. And, as a side note, kind of a fun fact, about a year and a half ago, I also decided to start getting involved in driving race cars, which is also male dominated. And right now I work with a couple foundations to sponsor females that are pretty good drivers and just have no sponsorship or no way to actually practice the sport they love. So my own personal journey has led me to places where I just want to make sure that we give the opportunity to people that want to get involved.
Thank you both for sharing that. I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective. When I've done my Clifton strengths, I lead with strategic thinking. So I see DE&I work as very strategic to the organization. It touches every aspect of it. And it's something that I kind of want organizations at high levels to see that strategic value and kind of stop treating it as passion work, that it needs to be all volunteer and you do it on your side. That to me signals that it's not really benefiting the organization, because if it's valued, you get paid for it. So for me, it's that strategic role. It's tied to the heart of what HR is. There's no other competitive, sustainable advantage a company can have other than its people. You can replicate, Lean Six management techniques, but you can't replace an Albert Einstein. So really finding out what makes your workforce unleash what makes them great is, to me, the heart of what we're trying to do in DEI, is remove the barriers so everyone's successful. it's the same thing in HR. How do you remove the barriers to make sure that you're successful? So it's, to me, in line with what I wanted to do from the beginning, is help people be the best that they can be and help organizations serve the people that work there as well as the communities.
Thank you very much for your answers there, and sharing a bit of your background in the process. Um, Next question is, what are the barriers that limit our ability to be D&I? And we'll start with Maria for this question.
I think there's the first one. I'll say there's a couple, but the first one I've spoken about in the few other questions, and this is the way we've always done it, or this is who traditionally leads the company, or this is kind of the way the company usually goes. So bringing all those different ideas to the table is always being kind of, I don't know, we're afraid of change. We don't want to deal with things in a different way. So I think that's definitely one of the barriers. And the second one is people's own fears of getting involved. I think trying to break a mold that has existed for a very long time in a certain company or in a certain organization to get involved with takes a lot of courage. And I think we fall short of helping people break through that fear. I think we do a very good job, like Rina and Angela have said, in saying, the NI is important to us, but we fail in showing people a path on how to actually accomplish sharing what they feel or what they think or their ideas. So I think those are the two biggest barriers right now.
Yeah, I'll add to the, very similar, right? I think, as you said, the stereotypes, right, Maria, that's really kind of gets on the way, because we all have a good intention, of creating some, diverse environment, but the stereotype ultimately takes over. And that's what I feel like that, maybe we're doing a lot of work on diversity, but that inclusion piece is still not happening fully. And it's going to be even, I look at Texas, we are among, I was listening to the news this morning, and we're still among the top, regions in US, which is so divided community, right? We think about how we live, we're all live in a divided community, and it's going to take us even longer in a region like us to truly have a DNI. But really kind of the things that comes on the way is the stereotype, as Maria said, this is the norm. And then a lot of time, a lot of companies are doing a lot of work in DNI, but it is sort of unfortunately becoming a bit of a checklist item for them. Hey, we got these two, the team looks diverse enough, we got the checkbox, and we got, but really the inclusion part, that is still not happening. And that can only happen if the tone at the top changes. People are really living by example and really kind of showing the others a way of, how things should be done. So a lot of work to do, but I still feel like, we're doing a lot of progress than where we were 15 years ago. So, yeah.
I agree with what you both shared. I think some of what you were just talking about, Rina, I put as performative efforts. A lot of the times it is a check the box. It's okay, well, we need to do this for our, our board or for community, but there's not really the buy-in. It's a compliance piece. And so I think if you're not genuinely committed, if it's just performative, and I think that's a barrier, because I think true inclusion happens in the messy pieces. It's like what Maria was saying of, yeah, we say diversity is important, but how do you get that? How do you enable leaders to be able to have those conversations across difference? How do you actually encourage humility? Inclusive conversations don't just happen. It is a competency, it is a skill set of being able to have those conversations. So just expecting that a leader is going to be able to have those conversations isn't, I don't think it's realistic. And so it's really preparing your workforce and your leadership to have those conversations, so that when we say diversity and inclusion is important, it's not just about hiring for diverse talent. It's about creating that inclusive culture where everyone can thrive and everyone can, achieve those goals, not just the select few that know how the system works. And I would also say another barrier, and this is for all of the students that want to go into this field. I would say it's from folks that want to get that cred, right? So, once, diversity and inclusion comes out, you're like, oh, we need to do a training. And we can say this many people went through. A lot of times your diversity and inclusion training doesn't need to be in an additional training. You can be calling out what's already in your inclusive leadership training, because good leadership is inclusive leadership. It's probably already baked in there. It's just pulling it out, because leaders don't like to have an HR tax. So the more you put on from a D&I perspective, you're kind of increasing that resistance in the people that you're trying to change into your advocates, change them into your champions. So I try to look at what's the most effective way that I can accomplish this without putting additional burden on the workforce. Sometimes I don't get it's 97 people went through our training, but I can say 86% of our workforce understands what allyship means and how it applies. So sometimes it's maneuvering in the existing systems and embedding it versus adding on additional. That's my little little plug.
Good tips in terms of tactics there. So the next question, I guess, we'll start with you as well, Angela, for this one. What are the long-term consequences if we ignore D&I?
Well, I don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle. And the internet still exists, social media still exists, live streaming, screenshots. So people are still going to be able to express what they're feeling. And so I don't think that companies are ever going to be able to truly ignore diversity and inclusion. So, but diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. I think that if companies don't choose to be included, they don't choose to take the actions, then I think that they're going to have issues with branding, trying to recruit people. They might have issues with, lawsuits, and you might run out of business people. Like, there is a war for talent, and it's difficult for a lot of people to find people who want to work there. If you have a bad culture, and that gets found, sometimes you can't pay them enough to make them want to work there. So I would say the long-term consequences if a company chooses to ignore diversity and inclusion, I don't think it would be in the best interest. It's a business imperative, I think, for you to have a diverse and inclusive culture.
Okay, great. We can go maybe to Rina next.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is no such thing as ignoring D&I. It's going to be right there all the time. But what I would say that if we don't embrace, what truly is diversity and inclusion, that's really going to hamper our growth. Our growth as a organization, growth as a community, growth as our region. We're seeing so much growth here in DFW area. And if we don't embrace D&I correctly, I think it's really going to hamper our growth in future, including, it is so important to have a truly productive workforce. And if you ignore that piece, that's going to kind of affect, how people behave, and differences are going to increase. Because when you do only diversity and not inclusion, that's when I think we kind of apart from each other more than we need to. So I think it's one of those things that it is not going to be ignoring. It is more about kind of really adapting and embracing that in with the right spirit to kind of make it really, beneficial to everyone. So.
Yeah, I would add to all that I think if we don't actually embrace D&I, or whoever, I shouldn't say whoever doesn't embrace D&I is going to become obsolete. And that's the end of that. It's going to continue to exist. It's going to grow. It's going to become more relevant, more important for businesses, for countries, for sports. Anywhere you look at it, if you just don't embrace it, that your particular organization, your particular government, your particular sport is going to become less and less and less relevant. How social media is not going to support it. It's not going to get the attention in YouTube. It's not going to get all the views in your social media platforms. I think, and like Angela said, people are not going to work there. People are not going to attend the sports. So I don't think, like Angela also said, there's a way to go back. I think there is a path forward that is extremely clear, that people that choose not to participate are going to end up losing competitiveness in a very big way, and they're going to be left behind. So I think it's not only now important to embrace it. I think it's part of a critical part of a true path forward to be successful.
All right. Thank you guys for your answers to that question. Next question, we'll start with Rina. What strategies do you use for developing innovative, diverse teams?
Yeah, for me, it is, I always try to reflect on how does my team looks like. I mentioned this thing, how big is my team, and it's really kind of making sure that I'm bringing right people in my team, irrespective, what background they come, but also at the same time they represent who we are serving, and and what our company stands for. So for me, it is kind of reflecting on, how my teams looks like. How do I really kind of take differences of different people and really empower them to make kind of really contribute to the team. And also what kind of shadow I'm casting as I'm leading the team, or kind of really leading the team, or kind of even presenting some time to our team, directing them. Because what I kind of shadow that I cast is what is going to really show up as DNIs, right, in our firm. So that's really kind of in my mind as a strategy that I've used personally. But of course, beside that, we have a lot of other tools and technique that we all have to do more to kind of really make people aware of this concept. We have a lot of trainings, which I know, Angela, you will say the training without really real hard to it is no meaning. But of course, we have a lot of trainings that we have done, and sometimes it's a good reminder for all of us on a different stereotype or our own, kind of biases that we have. So I think those are important, because a lot of time we talk about this and then we forget about it, and then we keep doing our business way we always do. And then having these kind of training reminders is a good way to kind of sit back and think about, are we really applying that? And then we know, as a forum, of course, we have had a lot of business resource group, which is kind of another way that we empower people to kind of, bring their differences and kind of really do kind of what is important to those different groups. So those are kind of the few of the strategies that, I've seen and used. So.
All right. Thanks. We'll go Maria next on that one.
Yeah, so I believe we're pretty good right now at doing two particular things. One, obviously, with I think everybody says, let's hire the best person for the job. And I feel very passionate that we take that very seriously at Ulterra, and we hire the best person for the job. The trick comes in actually letting them execute. Once they come in, let's not micromanage. Let's actually let them bring their background, their ideas, and what made him so great as a candidate. Trust me, is going to make him that great as an employee as well. So basically bring the best and get out of their way, so they can actually share their background and put their little own unique print in the organization. And second, I think we are now very big advocates of not having a linear career path. We're calling it the jungle gym. So we have people that start in accounting and all of a sudden decide that they'd like to try to go into marketing, or our head of marketing, as an example, right now comes from design engineering. He is at engineering by training and now heads marketing and has worked very well. So it's more showing people that this exact diversity and different trains of thought can lead you into different directions in the organization. You don't have to be engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, engineer 4. That the world is changing very quickly, and that does not have to be the natural career progression. So that is a very good way of making sure that we allow people to express their ideas in the area that they think that will contribute the most.
I think you're muted, Angela.
I agree with everything that y'all just said. And I was saying, Rita, I'm not trying to say that I disagree with training. I love D&I training, just don't want to add in a whole bunch of it. But yes, training is good. You definitely need to have education on this subject. I think from developing diverse and innovative teams, diverse teams outperform homogenous teams. There's been lots of studies that have shown that. So I think a key part is actually having diverse representation. And that's not tokenism. It's not, okay, well, I got at least one of everybody in a round, so I've checked that box. You know, there have been studies that show that you need at least 3 of any marginalized community to make a difference, right? Because otherwise, if I'm the woman in the room and I'm advocating for another woman, well, is it really because of her talent and her competency, or am I advocating for her because she's a woman? And so you need to have enough to where it sways and it's not that one voice. So to me, ensuring that you're really going to get that inclusion, that innovation from the team is making sure that it is truly representative and there's enough of a voice to make it to where you can, those good ideas rise to the top. Another thing that I use is I look for those Trojan horses. I'm looking for places where DE&I is already embedded in an organization and it's already there and it might not be called out. So tools that some organizations use, like Strength Finders or Clifton Strengths or emotional intelligence, those are totally in line with D&I concepts. So I call them my Trojan horses. If I can get into a team and start helping them to learn what the strengths of that team and doing some team building activities, they're going to understand what those unique contributions of those team members are, whether they're calling it diversity and inclusion or not, they're modeling that behavior. And so those are the things that I try to get in and achieve, because a lot of times you get those resistance of folks that have said, oh, D&I, that's a dirty word around here. And I've had people tell me that as the diversity manager, that diversity was a bad word there. So it's looking for those ways around those resistors that you can get them to buy into what you're wanting them to do, which is that create that inclusive behavior, whether or not they're acknowledging that it's diversity and inclusion or not. And so those are the ways that I try to create those innovative teams.
Thank you very much. And we have one last question for you all. We'll start with Maria on this one. What advice do you have for those who want to be D&I advocates and aren't sure how to start?
Love the question, and I'll approach it 2 ways. First, as an individual, and I'm going to say as an individual, if you want to learn more about D&I, travel if you can, read about other cultures, watch YouTube videos about how people in other places in the world live. It's a very broad world, and there's a lot to learn just from observing and learning and understanding what's important in different places around the world. So that's as an individual. If you want to understand a little bit more where people come from, actually take time to learn where people come from. So that's as an individual. In a company, my main advice would be speak up. Try to, when you see somebody that has a great idea and it's not getting traction, try to give him a hand. Try to remove a roadblock. To make a big difference in D&I, you don't have to be at the top. You just have to look around and see a peer that doesn't know how to effectively communicate a different way of looking at things, and just try to help them achieve that communication and get that communication across.
All right. We can go to Angela and then Rina.
I would say just start. There's a Harvard Business Review article, and it talks about how to be an ally. And the format that they used was LEAP. And we use that in our former organization as part of our allyship journey of like leap into allyship. So I would say just start. Like Maria said, from a personal perspective, if that's something you want to do, just get in, just start. all of the ways that Maria gave you are awesome ways. From an organizational perspective, if you're wanting to get into DE&I as a field, then I would say you could well, go to ETA. There's a field there. But you can also reach out to anyone that I would say that's on this panel. We'll be happy to help you and give you some tips and advice.
Yeah, and I really agree with everything Maria, you and Angela said. I always say is D&I starts with you, right? And are you truly an inclusive person, right? So if somebody is thinking about, I'm passionate about D&I want to be an advocate, especially for the students on the call who kind of wants to be a leader in this field, first look at yourself. Are you an inclusive person? What are your friends group look like? Who are the people that you mingle with and spend time with? Are they diverse enough? And it's so important to kind of really learn and educate yourself about others and their belief, their culture. And that's really kind of how you start becoming an advocate in this field. Simple things like, acknowledge other people's holidays and their cultures, right? And if you feel like I don't know, let's go learn about it, right? So we live in such a great community with so many diverse culture ideas and people with a background, and there is so much to learn, and we kind of educated about that. But once you all go into the industry or whatever workforce that you decide to go, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to get involved with this. It doesn't have to be a formal structure. It really could be a very informal structure about how you embrace the diversity, how you apply, and how you can become leader ultimately in that. Just looking at your team, kind of really, speaking out when you see the differences are not, embraced or appreciated. And then also if your companies ultimately do have some kind of a formal resource group, get involved with them, learn and educate yourself from them, and then you can really be a leader in that. I always think that especially for those on the call who kind of identify themselves as a diverse candidate, which is, I think, a very difficult definition, I would say, with everybody is diverse in some way. But those who do kind of feel like, oh, I'm a diverse candidate, I always think about it's a two-way process, right? Diversity and inclusion. You also have to make a step forward, and then you can expect somebody else to make a step towards you. So just always keep that in mind, that it is not all about others including you. You also need to kind of really learn and be includable, right, by the others. So that's something that I have used and has been kind of really helpful to me over the years. And that's what I would kind of, advise to those who either, want to do something about it or want to be a leader ultimately in this field. So.
All right, that's wonderful guidance. And so now we go off script a bit. And I'm going to open the floor for any questions from the audience. And so we do have one question that's come up from Eric. Do you have any specific performance metrics that you use to help us improve DEI in your companies? Also, do you know of any professional organizations, AICPA or AMA, that provide education and coaching on DEI?
I'll start with what we have done in our firm about a performance matrix. I don't exactly know if there are any other. There are a lot of training out there from the different organizations. But I think more from the matrix perspective, we encourage our people to be involved in a lot of different business goals. So each of our individuals have, of course, their goals to perform well on their projects, and these are more technical goals and do better, and they get feedback. But we also want them to be involved in the community, right? I mean, how are they involved in different not-for-profit organizations, and also kind of what are they involved with our internal initiatives? And our internal initiative will be, being involved with the different business resource group, which we have 14 plus business resource group here with a lot of different diversity, whether it is working parents or veterans or different Pan-Asian group or African American Asian group, and either you could be involved as a member or could be an allies. And even at our leadership level, at our partners level, we do set goals to mentor one or two people who look different than you. And so we have built a lot of goals and performance measure to kind of really challenge people to open up to this, and how can we truly make an inclusive environment at our organization. So
I've worked for organizations where we've had scorecards, where it's specific to where specifically what you're trying to achieve and what those performance measures are. And then I've worked for organizations where they tie it to executive compensation, to where this is the goal and then you need to hit this in order to get that executive compensation. And then there's been some management incentives for some, like if from first for some activities, depending on what it is. And then there was a second part of that question.
There's also a portion that asks, do you know of any professional organizations that provide education or coaching on DEI?
And there is an organization called the Texas Diversity Council. They have a certified diversity professional training that you could get. There is a neurodiversity certification you can get. It's all online. It's IBECCS, I think. But you could probably put in neurodiversity certification. And that's specific to around the cognitive diversity, the people that are on the autism special or ADD or OCD. And then there's also like a Smiley Institute, and they have a diversity certification. There's a whole bunch of others, like you can Google or you can just go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a lot of D&I trainings. The Winters Group has 2 trainings that I would recommend from LinkedIn that cover, broad sections of D&I.
Dr. Briggs, I see a question here.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take that? Okay. Yeah.
Sure. If just any other
I don't know.
yes, we do have time. Just want to know, were there any other thoughts on metrics before we move on to that one? Okay. So yes, Rina, you mentioned inclusion being asking them to dance. And can you give an example of this in your workplace?
Yeah. So what I really truly mean is, I'm gonna actually give an example here too. But what I really meant is, you have a diverse team, or include others with in your team that doesn't look like you, or doesn't think or have the same background. But then how are you really truly empowering them to make decisions, or how are we truly including them so they could be successful with you, right? So I have tons of business example, but I'm going to give a little bit of fun example here, a little different. We business development is a big part of what I do at my level as a partner, right? We have to grow, build relationship with people with, in the business community, and then kind of really we do a lot of events and different things for our clients. And one of the firm's event that I participated a few years ago is we do a spring training Rangers event, which happens in the Phoenix area. And we invite some of our really key executives from our different clients to attend. It's a very handpicked group of 15, 20 people. And one of my client was coming, of course, a male, and so some of the partners who had their clients come, so I joined basically spring training. Don't know much about baseball for sure, I'll tell you. So I do know cricket, but I didn't know anything about it. And we were 20 people. And of course, I was the only female in this group. And it wasn't about just attending the spring training. It was really going on the field and practicing with some of the Rangers over there. So it was a super cool event, and I was super nervous because I felt like, okay, we had to spend 2.5 days with, this big group of executive males and not knowing how to play baseball. So so some of my fellow partners who were with me, I didn't even have a, by the way, glove because they said to bring your own glove, and I'm like, okay, well, I had to go shopping. So, but she brought one of his extra one, and they truly included me into the process and made it so much more comfortable for me to be in the field and playing. And that's what I call it, as, you know, kind of also asking them to dance. They could have easily said, Rina, if you don't want to participate on some of these practices, you could sit on the side. If you feel comfortable, come. But they really really brought me with them and kind of almost taught me how to play a baseball. I'll tell you, I was super nervous to do this, but I call it, that's what I call it, a diversity and inclusion. When you really reach out and truly include them and make it comfortable, you know, there's an equality piece that needs to happen. That's the only way you can truly achieve D&I. So
Rina, the baseball star.
I have some cool pictures, I'll tell you, but beside that, yeah, I did pretty bad on the field, but that's okay. It was super fun, by the way. So yeah.
So great that you're open to getting involved in that. Another question we have from Eric: do you have any book recommendations you'd like to share on DEI or business in general that helped you all?
I'll take that one first, if you don't mind, Doctor.
Sure.
So, and it's going to sound very predictable because I'm a female, but I love Leaning, that work by Sheryl Sandberg, and not just because of what it means as a female, but what it means in the workforce to try to get involved. This is the book in general is all about getting that seat at the table and fighting for that seat at the table. Not taking from granted also that it's going to be given to you, but actually working really hard through your career, through your networking, through your mentors, to try to get that seat at the table. So I recommend that book because it gives you a path of circles, networking, and additional resources you can find to ensure you keep speaking up and getting involved.
So I a few, but I'm an admitted nerd. So if you want more, I can give you even more. There's a book called No Ego by Cy Wakeman. It's not a DE&I book. I would say it's more of a business book, but I think it goes to the heart of inclusive leadership and coming from that place of humble, of leaning into that space. There's another book called Love and Work, and Marcus Buckingham just put it out last year. Or maybe it's the beginning of, last year. Love that book, and it's about finding what you love in work. And then from a D&I perspective, there's a lot of really great books out there, but as a white person, I totally recommend, if you're going to get in the space as a white person, to read White Fragility. I like Being Anti-Racist, Inclusion by Jennifer Brown, and probably anything that Mary Frances Winters has written. I'm really big fan of most of her work. It's very well put together, and you have lots of references and information from there.
One question that I have, if I can throw one out, is when you're in this space, I've heard you guys talk a lot about the real business impacts of DEI. But is there also a values component? Do you ever appeal to based on, you know, this is the right thing to do when you're trying to convince individuals in your company, or is that appeal not one that you find as being as effective?
So I would say a lot of us who are truly passionate and involved are really doing it because that's the right thing to do. Um, and maybe I'm not answering your question exactly, but I think there is definitely that component in there. If you don't have a heart in this, it's not very effective, really, right? So you really need to do it with the right spirit. That's the right thing to do, and that's the right thing to promote people, right? Different people. For businesses, there has to be some, business aspect, more from the perspective that, hey, you're really going to lose out if you don't think this way, right? So we need to kind of work with, hey, there's a true increase in productivity, or true talent retention, and some of the business aspects that are so important to be successful. So I do like to think about both the ways, because I think, but at the same time, sometimes it is more about this is the right thing to do for our people, and we just do it irrespective of what really the business outcome of that is going to be. So, and then we have taken decisions where it might have hurt us financially, but that was the right thing to do for our people. So,
And I agree with that, Rina. If it's the right thing to do for the people, it's the right thing to do for the company. I don't think there's any other way to look at it. And I think Angela said at the beginning too, is, your people are your organization, period. That's it, full stop. So if it's the right thing to do for the people, it'll end up being the right thing to do for the business.
And I would say I started off my second job in HR was working for a nonprofit, helping people with disabilities find and retain employment. The reason why I got hired is because I came from a staffing organization. I came from talent acquisition. Everyone else that was working on that government contract were social workers. They were not successful. And it was because they were trying to get people to hire people. Oh, hire him. He's such a nice guy. Well, businesses have needs, right? I'm saying hire him. He can do X, Y, and Z, and this is how he's going to add value. And oh, by the way, you get a tax credit. It's still the right thing to do, but there's a business reason for it. I have not found success in my career by saying do something because it's really the nice thing to do. I think that the early adopters, to Maria's point, the early adopters, we're the people that are passionate. You need to be bought in with the heart before you're doing the work. But when you're trying to get buy-in at an organizational level, I've only found success by presenting the business case. You can present the business case in addition to the heart case of this is the right thing to do. But I've only found success when presenting the business case as well.
Thank you very much for your responses to that. So one more call. Any last questions before we're out of time and we have to release our talented panel to their organizations?
I would just say it was super fun and exciting to kind of hear the perspective of the other leaders from other companies, and really, Dr. for you to do this. I think this is so important, for all of us, but also for our students who are just, about to join the workforce. And I really think that they should really feel empowered about whatever diverse background they do have. And there is going to be a lot of opportunity for them if they really want to, are passionate and want to get involved in this field in any way. So,
thank you. We have one last question come in also. If you have anyone has a quick response on this, can you discuss any challenges or obstacles? This is from Darian. Any obstacles the company has faced in promoting DEI, and how has the company you've worked with responded to these challenges?
I'll tackle some.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I can say there's two different. So you have the obstacles of sometimes leaders actually know what the problems are. So you have to be able to get the access and dig underneath the hood and do some equity analysis. So sometimes they don't want to do that out of fear that they might find something. That's a real obstacle. And so the way that you address that is by presenting it. This is data, and just sticking your head in the sand isn't going to make it go away. But sometimes you have to, it's kind of like if you don't go to the doctor, it doesn't mean you don't have cancer. It just means that you didn't find out about it. So it's giving them, hey, us not knowing about it isn't going to protect us. So it's presenting that business case. And the other half is sometimes you make a decision to do mainly training, and then you have to explain a lot of people that don't want to do that training, why they want to do it. And then that's going back to that, creating that business case of why it's important as an organization, how it's contributing to the culture of why you're doing it, and then making sure that you enforce it with accountability. Those are those two, I would say, obstacles that I've encountered and how we've addressed them.
Thank you. So now we're at our time limit. And so perfect timing on finishing up that response. And I guess I will leave this in the hands of Mary Finley, who is our big sister guiding things.
Well, I would just say thank you all for coming today. The questions have been awesome. I've learned a lot, and I love that. My brain's very happy today, and I wish everybody the very best for the rest of their day. And thank y'all very much for coming.
All right. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you all.
Take
Bye.
care.
Yeah.